Thank you. My name is Jason Rojas. I'm Chief of Staff to President Joanne Berger-Sweeney. I hope all of you have been well during the winter break. I know it's been very busy for many of us. And we're looking forward to the spring semester, which has already begun, at least remotely. And obviously we'll have students returning later this week. And we're looking forward to another successful spring semester. I want to thank you for everyone for joining us. We had over 200 of our colleagues here at the college register for today's webinar. And we're almost up to 200 attendees at this point. A quick overview of how we're going to run the webinar. President Berger-Sweeney is going to provide some brief opening remarks. We're going to provide you a brief presentation on some major items that I think will answer a lot of the questions that have been presented to us. Of course, we got some questions in advance, and we will welcome other questions while the webinar is going on. You can do that in the Q&A link. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to President Berger-Sweeney.
Oh, hello, and thank you very much, Jason. First and foremost, my hope is that all of you and your families are well. This has been a challenging winter for all of us as we manage both through our personal as well as professional responsibilities and responses to COVID. If any of you have been touched personally and individually by this COVID crisis, please know that, and please accept, my best wishes and know that you are in my thoughts. Now, fortunately, with the new year, there's been a rollout of a COVID vaccine. And also, I hope that you acknowledge the significant amount of work that we accomplished together last semester. We grappled both with COVID, but also with issues of racial justice and sexual misconduct in the fall semester. And we were able to successfully complete the semester in person. And I think we have a possibility of an in-person commencement this year. I'm sure that there will be restrictions, but we will continue to move forward with the hope that we have an in-person commencement of some sort. And maybe all of those things together are just a little bit of a light at the end of this tunnel. Now we're beginning the spring semester in just a couple of weeks face to face. As Jason mentioned, we've already started classes for the spring semester, those that are 13 weeks. We have had very low numbers, almost zero, of COVID cases on campus. Now, admittedly, there are few people. And we know that as our students and more of our faculty and other staff members come back to campus, there may be small upticks. So please pay attention to all of the information that you're getting about how to return safely to campus. It will be similar, though a little bit different from the fall semester. But please pay attention, and we are looking forward to welcoming you back onto campus. It is still, in my mind, a little quiet. It certainly is cold on days like today, and I know that and I think many of the people on this webinar are looking forward to a little bit more activity and life on our campus that will start really in another week and certainly in full force by March 1st. We're all eager to return to our lives as they were, but I hope that we also maybe take away some of the positive things that may have happened during COVID. It's been a challenging time, but maybe you've spent a little bit more time with your family members. Maybe, just maybe, you slowed down a little bit. And so I hope that we're able to keep some of the positive COVID habits that we might have gathered, but I certainly am looking forward to being able to, at some point in the not too distant future, be physically as well as socially closer to people, but we're not quite there yet. Trinity is an extraordinary community, and your participation here on this call is a reminder of that. All of the hurdles we have faced in the past year have really just reinvigorated our commitment to doing important work, including our duty to you, our faculty, and our staff members. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for being a caring and generous member of the Trinity family. Now, we're going to take questions that we received prior to the webinar, but before that, we want to make a brief presentation. I've asked a number of my colleagues to join me here, and they will share with you a combination of things. Some of the things that we learned from last semester, and some of the changes that we expect here in the spring semester. But mostly it's just to give you a chance to ask questions and to recognize how we look forward to welcoming you back in just a little bit of time. So with that, I'm going to suggest that we start the presentation, Jason.
Thank you, President Berger-Sweeney. We'll begin with what is a snowy slide welcoming you to the spring semester. Given that Phoebe the hedgehog predicted 6 more weeks of winter. Chuckles, the groundhog, passed away recently, so Connecticut went with the prediction from a hedgehog. So we'll begin with our first, a little bit of data from the fall semester, just to give folks some perspective of what we went through the fall and how we managed the process with having our students here on campus. We had 72 campus students who lived in residence halls, who had tested positive, 50 students who had lived off campus who had tested positive, and 16 of our colleagues who also tested positive during the fall. Student discipline, which was a question we got quite a bit from students as well, that student life did have to issue 190 warnings for COVID, various COVID contract violations, and ultimately 25 students were asked to complete the semester at home for some of the violations that took place. You see kind of the pattern of cases that we experienced over the fall. There was certainly a clustering effect that took place. And I think, we were able to manage those upticks in cases because of our surveillance testing protocol. Once we identified individuals who had tested positive, our health center team and contact tracers were able to engage those who had tested positive, and of course, determine exactly who around them may have been in close enough contact to have to quarantine. We would isolate the students who had confirmed cases and of course ask students who were in close contact to quarantine in an effort to mitigate spread. And once we were able to do that, you would begin to see those cases decline. And then of course there were times when they just rose again. And a team that put in a lot of time and effort over the semester, working 7 days a week, being available 24 hours a day to respond to these cases, really did put in an enormous effort in serving our campus and college community. And I'm certainly grateful to all of them. I always felt like I was really, really busy, but it was really our healthcare professionals and the individuals running our testing center who were on all the time and perhaps certainly should get a lot more credit, for the work that they did. You'll see that we conducted over 53,000 tests in the fall. That is certainly a number that far outpaces most institutions of higher education here in Connecticut. Most schools were not testing at the rate that we were testing. And I think the state has recognized our overall level of testing, and most institutions of higher education in Connecticut now are moving to a similar model to ours, where they're testing at least twice a week. Some schools were only testing a percentage of their overall student body. Some schools were only testing once a week. And I think, a lot of schools have seen the benefit of testing more frequently so they can try to control spread on their campuses. And obviously we were getting pretty good response time from Broad, the Broad Institute, in terms of returning information back to us so that we could update our dashboard, keep our campus community informed, and also respond to confirmed cases on campus. Some of the patterns that we saw that were connected to confirmed cases were obviously socializing outside of the student contract, other gatherings that were taking place off campus, visiting off campus venues, restaurants and gyms, and also returning home for visits. Joe, you're muted.
Thanks, Jason. Joe DiCristina here, Vice President for Student Success and Enrollment Management. On this slide, we just wanted to give you a little bit of data, the next 3 slides actually, what took place in terms of during the fall and the courses, 49% remote, 15% hybrid, 36% in person. We know that during the fall semester, there were almost 1,700 students in residence in college-owned residence halls, and then over 200 students that were living off campus within a block of campus. And I know all the students who are here really appreciated the fact that they were able to have in-person classes and the work that faculty and staff did in order to make those classes come together. So we just wanted to get a sense of the numbers and appreciate that work. And J-term, we've also had classes for J-term, 150 courses during that, and all were remote. So students during the month of January until February 5th, and then a quick turnover to starting the semester remote, starting February 8th. During the fall semester, we have some data. I just want to share a little bit here about athletics, and Drew is on the call here as well. So at the end, if we have questions more about it, he can answer those, our Director of Athletics. I thought it was really fascinating to see the number of varsity practices that were held over the fall semester. Really a lot of effort by coaches and staff to make that happen and do it in a way that is safe from a physical distancing perspective. But all the number of students that participated, and there were a fair number, 91% of our varsity athletes, students who identify as varsity athletes, were here on campus. And then various club and sports recreation, 566 students participated in that. And this other piece of data here at the bottom, 6,365 time slots, that's all the work that inside Ferris that people were doing with recreation time and time for students in particular, faculty and staff, to use the equipment there by signing up. So it's a lot of work to make that happen, and appreciate that. The next slide. Clearly, there were other activities on campus, whether it was through the chapel and choir, work with student activities and sales, student government. We just wanted you to know that there were a lot of Zoom events for students. We also had some grab and go events. We did a survey of students that we'll talk about later at the end, but students are asking for some more in-person activities to be together, and we're working to make that happen for this second semester here, knowing how to do it in a way that is protective and a safe way for students. A lot of support services for students throughout this last semester. Actually, really starting from last March all the way through the last 7 or 8 months, tremendous amount of work by faculty and staff to really care for students individually, through the counseling center, for Dean of Student Life Office, Student Success, the chaplain's office, career development. All those offices maintained regular schedules with students in terms of most of them being virtual, but a lot of thousands of hours of support for students. Also during this time period, a lot of work with advancement and Dr. Davis's area with the Equity and Emergency Fund, and supporting students in terms of needs to be here on campus for study, for students to go home, just a tremendous amount of support. And so we are appreciative of all the work that people have done. There was a survey that was completed for students. It was done in January. And so we also have data about the faculty, but in this, we thought it would be just interesting for you to see some of the information that's coming back from that survey. So after the fall semester, during J-term, students did this survey, and this we thought was one of the highlights. About 850 students responded to their survey, and trying to give us a sense of what are they thinking about in terms of coming back to campus, and such a large percent of people talking about coming back to campus. 87% is tremendous. I think it's it's shows the importance of students being together socially, working together academically, and in the classroom here with all of our faculty and our staff. And then the factors, okay, the top cited factors in spring plans, what's driving them to come here. So these are and decisions that people are making. So these are actual counts from individuals of what they were prioritizing. I think I turn it over to Sonia.
Yes. Hi, everybody. This is Sonia Cardenas, Acting Dean of the Faculty and Vice President for Academic Affairs. I hope you are all well. We're going to shift now to faculty perceptions of remote learning. This was a key element, as you know, in a new aspect of our teaching in the fall. Faculty took this survey, the equivalent of what students took, and the response rate was quite high with 72% responding. As you can see here, we asked faculty, among other things, to compare their experience in the fall with the previous spring. And an overwhelming 74% said that the fall was better. This is a testament, as you know, to the work that faculty did, but also the support that they received from the Center for Teaching and Learning and for the staff in information services and educational technology. So we are feeling pretty good. I would say very, very good about going into the spring with remote teaching. I'm going to turn it now to Dean Miyazaki to talk about faculty perceptions of student learning.
So amongst those respond to the survey, vast majority of faculty felt that students learn quite well. 89% to be exact responded that students learn moderately well to extremely well. So we are very pleased to learn these responses. And I think we could say that despite those constraints, our remote learning was a great success.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Michelle Cabral, Assistant Vice President for Human Resources. And to say a few words about the Trinity employee experience, we've heard from many of you anecdotally and through focus groups that really a strong communication plan and the policies such as the remote work policy and support for faculty and staff members that really felt that working remotely was the best option for them in the fall really helped employees to feel secure and to stay connected and able to concentrate on their work. Employees also really acknowledged the strong IT support that they received and appreciated also virtual social gatherings that also helped employees stay connected through the holidays and to replace those things that typically would have happened if we had been in an in-person environment. I would say, one of the themes that I heard very strongly was that employees felt supported, but not micromanaged. And they really felt that they were able to balance their work and their life commitments much more easily, given everything that was going on in the fall. And overall, really stating that it was a very positive experience for employees. So we hope to build on that and use the feedback that we've received to develop plans going forward.
Great. So what did we learn from the fall that's going to help us do the planning for the spring? As all of you have experienced, the testing certainly was, I would consider, the backbone of our ability to open and remain open. As Jason gave the numbers, and as you looked at the graph there, it showed the different time periods that we had cases on campus, in particular with students. And I really have to echo what Jason said, is the work of the staff in the testing area, the work of the health center staff, and the staff in student life office, really working directly with students when tests were coming back, quarantining students, isolating, following those protocols, really to limit the spread of the virus, and it worked in each time where we started to see cases. And so, just as I have said, to follow the science of all this, it was pretty fascinating to watch that, and obviously have our plans in place again for this upcoming semester. No evidence of virus being transmitted in classroom or sanctioned activities. Obviously, we have all of our information tells us that the virus was spread at times when people were probably socializing in locations and in larger groups than they should have. And as Jason mentioned in the first couple of slides, perhaps going out to dinner or going to a restaurant. It wasn't in our settings where we had really worked hard here on campus in terms of the classroom setting being a safe environment, or sanctioned activities, on the athletic field or other student activities where students were gathered and there was someone there helping to make sure that all protocols were being followed. I thought that's really important for everybody to know that worked well. We really appreciate, the members of the steering committee. We really appreciate the fact that all of us in the community had to make adjustments at times based on various alert levels, and I think people supported those changes that helped us continue to move forward, to continue to make decisions about safety and the protocols that work. I really, our Chartwell staff in terms of food service and the work they did with grab and go, basically all semester, the work with the ABM staff and how much care they cared for all of our students, including students in isolation, and really just adjusted to helping us make this happen. A tremendous amount of effort by individuals from Chartwell and ABM throughout all of this, and really help us maintain a safe environment. And I think the other thing was, as you would have seen throughout the semester, Jason and myself, we sent out a number of messages to our community to keep you informed. I would say 85% of those messages through the work of our communications office with Angela and Michael Casey and Advancement, we then forward those messages on to families, and parents and families wrote back to us. They were really appreciative of the fact that we kept them informed and wrote really nice notes back to us as a college about the work that we were all doing, faculty and staff and our administration, to keep people safe and for us to keep them informed. And those frequent communications will continue as we move forward.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jody Goodman. I'm Dean of Student Life. So as we look ahead, onboarding of our students will look very similar to what it looked like in the fall semester. And it's also similar to what other NESCAC schools are doing. So in the fall semester, we were able to bring our students back to campus safely. We are following the same process this spring. So as students get ready to come back, we have asked them to do a self quarantine at home. We're asking them to get their pre-arrival tests and submit those results to Co-Verified. Upon their arrival back on campus, we are asking students to self-quarantine in their rooms. They will be tested once they arrive on campus. And they'll be able to leave their rooms for meals. They'll be able to leave their rooms to get some exercise outdoors if they like. But for the most part, we are asking them to stay in their rooms and just take that week to self-quarantine prior to March 1st, the first day of classes, in-person classes. Students also must re-sign the community contract and participate in the weekly testing cycle here on campus. We're hoping that by taking all of these precautions, like we did in the fall semester, that we'll have a successful spring semester.
Thank you. Just continuing with our safety protocols, obviously, as we continue our journey through this pandemic, we're in here, at least here in Connecticut, we're in a much better place than we have been for a very long time, where the positivity rate is now around 2%. It's the lowest it's been since November. And obviously we have the vaccines that are rolling out, and that's certainly giving, people who live in our state some level of comfort that there's progress being made. But we also know that, we can't let up. This is not the time to let up. So we're going to be continuing with the safety protocols that we had in place during the fall. Obviously, the 6-foot social distancing, our classrooms having a maximum size in terms of how many people can be in there. Mask wearing will continue. Hand sanitizers and wipes will continue to be provided throughout campus. And certainly Chartwell's and their food service operation will continue to operate in the way that it did during spring. We're going to be asking individuals to continue with their daily symptom checks and reporting that through the Co-Verified app. A mandatory face covering, increased frequency of cleaning in all sorts of facilities all over campus. One change that we're looking to implement as soon as we get through our transition period is having a limited number of students who can eat in the dining hall. We've limited that number to 29 to keep it consistent with what we're doing in our classroom spaces. And we're going to see how that works. We're hoping that our students will abide by what we're expecting of them in terms of not congregating in large groups in the dining hall. But we also are doing it because we know that students were making other spaces on campus into dining halls, which was causing other sorts of issues. So we're trying to provide some other positive social outlets for our students who are going to be on campus and operating in a way, obviously, that is unlike they've ever experienced before. So we're going to attempt that and monitor it as closely as we can and adjust it accordingly. And of course, if you've been in a dining hall, you know that Chartwell's put up lots of plexiglass, again, to create another barrier between the individuals working there and students and faculty and staff who are going in there to get meals as well.
So we have had a very comprehensive testing, managing confirmed cases, and we're also going to talk right now a little bit about vaccine. The testing program that we have as a committee set up that Drew Galbraith has been in charge of down in the Ferris Athletic Center, with the surveillance testing of 2 times a week for each student and 1 time a week for employees, just helps us to identify and take appropriate actions as quickly as those results have come in. We've had really good results with that, and Drew's team has done an excellent job with that. Also, in the health center, we are looking to work with student life and with campus safety so that when we do get those positive tests, that we can move the students into isolation facilities as quickly as possible. At this point, I have to call out Kara Anastasia, who is the lead contact tracer and the clinical lead, who has done outstanding work this past semester in helping us get our students into a place where their illness is much more regulated and less able to be spread. And also Lorene Hayes, who has been checking the Co-Verified app and talking to people with symptoms, since we started, and just having those conversations and reassuring people and getting them where they need to be has been crucial in our success. Also, students were encouraged to contact any office on campus where they thought that they needed some support. All offices were boots on the ground, ready to support our students. When we had isolation, we put them into a residence hall on campus. Some students chose that they would be more comfortable if they isolated in their own space at home. So we also helped them execute that isolation in the safest way possible for them and their families. So we had reported to communications the dashboard data, which we will continue to do so everyone can see how we get our testing results, how many tests we're doing, how we manage those positive cases. The other question that has come up frequently, where everyone is very optimistic and looking forward, is how can we protect our community with the vaccinations? And as you're aware, I'm certain, it's all being defined by the state of Connecticut, who is eligible to receive vaccines. We are now in phase 1B, which includes anyone over the age of 65 is eligible to receive them. And Trinity has been in consultation with Hartford Healthcare, setting up a system for our community to get vaccinated. But people over 65 should not wait until we get that process set up for the Trinity community. They should obtain as soon as possible the vaccine if they are currently eligible. If you need some information on how to do that, I'll work with Michelle Cabral. We have sent out one email, but we'll send out more information after this so that you know exactly the easy steps that you can take if you are eligible to go ahead and get that vaccine. There is a website through Hartford Healthcare where if you register now, knowing that you're under 65, but when you identify yourself, you can be notified that your class has now been considered eligible, and you'll get an email that says, now's your time, please sign up. So you can be proactive if you would like to follow the Hartford Healthcare system as DPH approves new eligibility categories. Or if you choose, you can also register straight through the state of Connecticut at the information listed here, ct.gov COVID vaccine, and you can put your name on the list with the VAMs. So we will keep you posted as to when different categories of employee will become eligible via age or via classification as educator, via classification as you're special and you should get it, which is what we're hoping. We can get everybody their vaccine just as soon as possible, and we'll keep you posted on that progress. There have also, been some questions about when will our students be able to, and the students, which is typically a very healthy younger population, will likely not be eligible for vaccine until, I would say, May, June period. So we're hoping to get them as vaccinated just as soon as possible, but it probably will not be, they will not be eligible during the spring semester, more than likely.
Hi folks, I'm Angela Schaefer, Vice President for Communications and Marketing. I just want to take a moment to highlight some of the changes and enhancements to our communications regarding COVID for the spring semester. And I want to start by saying thank you to everybody who gave us a lot of really helpful feedback and suggestions for making improvements to those communications. So just quickly on a couple of slides here, there are some updates to the COVID dashboard. Starting the week of February 22nd, we will be updating the number of active cases every weekday. That's an increase from last semester when we were updating it at least twice a week. And anytime the alert level changes, in addition to the weekday updates, if for instance it changes over the weekend, we'll update the dashboard then as well. The dashboard now includes some things that it didn't have in the spring. One of them is a short list of the kind of highlights of most important details for you in terms of the daily operations based on what the alert level is. It also includes the number of students who are either in isolation or in quarantine, as well as some data showing what the conditions are in the surrounding area. And we've also added an indicator on how long it's taking for test results to come back, because that's such an important factor in our ability to manage the virus on campus. So if the test results are taking longer than about 36 hours to come in, you'll see that showing as delayed on the dashboard. In addition, we've also changed somewhat our approach to the campus alert level system. That's the color-coded system from green to red. We're still using the color-coded system, but we're taking a more flexible approach to it this semester so that we can, as a college community, respond more precisely to whatever the situation is in the moment. So when we change the alert level, we will send out an email to the entire community and give you specific guidance about what the operational details are that are specific to that situation. I also want to note that we are adding a new phase that goes beyond the green to red color-coded system that we're calling campus transition phase. And that's so that we can really specifically and carefully manage those periods when large numbers of students are arriving or departing campus. So when students start moving back on Thursday, the 18th, we will move into a campus transition phase. And that'll last through February 28th, which was the period that Dr. Goodman was referring to before. when students move in, and they're basically in a self-quarantine phase until the start of classes on March 1st. Can move to the next one. Thanks. And then just quickly, where to find information on COVID-19 and Trinity's response. One space that's new in terms of being a space for communications is actually on campus in the Ferris Athletic Center. There's a digital screen now where you can see key dashboard data. Every time you go there to get your COVID test, you'll be able to see that. Online, we still have the link to the COVID-19 website on our homepage. That will remain there under Important Now. And we've also added to the horizontal navigation bar at the top of the webpage a COVID-19 info that links to the COVID website. So that persists on every page of the college's website. And then finally, we've added a COVID-19 advisory to the daily Trinity Today email. And that will include the college's alert level status and any specific guidance for the community.
Hi, everyone. Drew Galbraith, Director of Athletics. And I just want to echo my thanks to the coaches and athletic staff for all their efforts in the testing center and the Ferris Athletic Center all fall, and return to many of those same roles as we start the spring semester. And also very excited to welcome back a large group of students later this week. After that quarantine window, presuming low case numbers on campus, we'll get right to work on March 1st. And so the Ferris Athletic Center will reopen with daily hours in the fitness center, the pool, the Eusting gym, and the squash courts. You can both sign up for and see all of those hours on bantamsports.com. In addition, varsity and club practices will resume with small numbers and socially distanced practices that week, as well as some outdoor programming that we're excited to launch very early in the semester. In addition to all of those physical activities, there's a multitude of activities that the professionals in student life have been hard at work planning. And so these come through SAIL, through the Bantam Network, through Cine Studio and Austin Arts, just to name a few. So we really do believe this is going to be a productive semester of activities for all of our students, athletes and non-athletes, and should be really enriching for all students at Trinity this spring.
Hello, everyone. This is Anita Davis, Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Wanted to share with you all also the work that has gone into this past semester of making sure that we continue to provide events and programming for our community. So this is sort of by the numbers. These are the number of folks that engaged with us and attended our activities, over 1,100 students, about 122 faculty and staff. We had alumni, our Hartford neighbors, and 15 prospective students. So this is only through December of 2020. And I know that there's a question about updates to DEI. And so I'll be back a little bit later, assuming there's time, to give you more of an update. But this is just to show that we have continued in DEI to be very active in engaging all members of our community, especially our students, in activities to help keep them connected to each other and to the college.
So that brings us to the end of our presentation. I want to thank my colleagues for helping us with what I think was a really informative presentation. And I think now we have an opportunity to move into the question part. Oh, hold on one second. Here we go. Lost my screen for a moment. Now we can get into answering the questions that we did receive in advance. And I think we've gotten a couple sent to us in the Q&A function as well. So what I think we'll do is open up with the first question, and I will kick this over to either Michelle, Martha, or Kara. How will vaccines work on campus once we get a system going, and when can staff expect to receive them? And I know you hit on that a little bit, but I always think it's good to reiterate it again, just so for anybody who didn't hear it the first time.
Sure. As I mentioned, the availability for staff and students to get them depends on the state's Department of Public Health quantifying when that can happen and defining who can receive them at that time. Once we get permission to do that, if it's logistically possible, we'd love to bring them to campus for you. Because the vaccine is fragile in terms of temperature management, it might be that we can facilitate the access to the vaccination process at one of the existing vaccine clinics that exist around the state. So once we find out that we are eligible to start doing the vaccinations, we would then advertise or communicate with you how we plan to move forward with that. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Martha. Yeah, and I participate in a number of weekly calls too, and I know the big question we have is supply of vaccines. That is really what is kind of holding up the process in terms of getting everybody vaccinated that we want to get vaccinated. For the first couple weeks of the vaccine rollout, the state was receiving about 45,000 doses a week. That's recently been increased to about 70,000 doses a week. Certainly, as other vaccines come online, we are cautiously optimistic that the number of vaccines given to Connecticut will increase over time, and it will be able to speed up the number of people who can actually access a vaccine. So fingers crossed that production can be sustained at the levels that it's being sustained, and that they're able to get it into people's arms as quickly as possible. One of the next questions we got was for Dan. How is the budget looking for this year? And how are you thinking about the budget, or how are you feeling about the budget heading into next year?
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dan Hitchell, the Vice President for Finance and the Chief Financial Officer for the college. Due to the good work of all of our faculty and staff and all the teams here on campus and those working remotely, feel confident about this fiscal year. It looks as promising as it possibly can, I think, in a pandemic. But with that, I have to say that we're still in a pandemic, and there's a great deal of unknown and uncertainty that we're considering for next fiscal year. And we're looking at that and working with our shared governance boards, particularly the PBC, the President's Planning and Budget Council, and working through those issues now. And as we go forward, we'll share with the PBC, and of course share with our standard mid-year, not mid-year, but excuse me, our standard budget town halls that we hold. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. Next question. There's we know that there's a compensation planning effort going on right now, and the person asking the question was just looking for an update on the timeline, the scope, and how staff and the staff councils can be involved in that process.
Sure, thank you. So yes, we've, for those of you that may not know, we've chosen to partner with the Siegel Company to do the compensation study. And we chose them because of their expertise in the higher education market, as well as their acknowledgement and willingness to incorporate community feedback into this process, which, as you know, we know is so key. So we are kicking off the project. We had a meeting last week, and we have a meeting tomorrow to get started on the study. And the first phase of the study will be really about current state, right? What exists now, then moving into analysis around, you know, job descriptions and how do we stack up with our external markets and our comparison markets, and then reacting to the findings and doing implementation planning. Through each of these stages, we will really need to have your input and feedback. The first step we'll take there is to schedule some focus groups to find out, you know, how you feel about the current state. What are your questions about comp? What do you want to get out of this survey? So that will really form our approach to developing our comp philosophy. Second phase will be input into your job descriptions, and third phase, like reacting and what policy and process questions do you have. So we really envision a lot of back and forth and input so that we focus this on an outcome that's going to work for the employees and the organization. It will take several months. This is a complex study, a lot of different pieces. So we do envision it taking, you know, about 6 to 8 months, but I definitely think it's going to be worth it. It's going to be a great product when we are finished with it.
Thank you, Michelle. I think I'm coming right back to you with another HR-related question.
Okay.
What other HR initiatives are currently being considered? Will there be staff appreciation events / activities?
Sure. So in addition to the comp study, we are developing a number of initiatives in response to the 2019 engagement survey data that we received. One of the clear priorities was to develop an employee onboarding program for new employees to assist managers and employees to really settle into their roles really quickly when they start a new role. We are going to pilot some manager training for managers. We have begun talking with our councils about recognition programs that really target, like acknowledge employees for doing a variety of, having success in a variety of ways, collaborators, newcomers, unsung heroes who made a difference. So we are in talks to evolve that and focus that and hope to roll that out as the spring semester moves on. And the next engagement survey will be coming out in early spring as well to kind of get your responses as to how we're doing and what changes we need to make to move the employee experience forward. So those are a few of the things that we are working on.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next question is for Anita. Anita, can you, I know you referenced this a little bit when you were talking on your slide. Can you tell us a little bit about what's planned for DEI initiatives going forward?
Sure. So wanted to just let you know about a few things and give you some updates about some of the broad initiatives that we've started. So most of you know about our really robust work that we've done in our hiring processes in terms of recruiting and hiring a more diverse group of faculty and staff. That's been rolled out, and we are looking forward to see our progress that we make in that as we look at our hires this coming academic year. Affinity groups have started, thanks to Sarah Raskin and also Donna Fellow for their collaboration. We now have a number of affinity groups, and we have contact persons. Thank you to all the faculty and staff who've agreed to be contacts for those affinity groups. We know that some of you are already meeting and having discussions. We'll be sending out an email that lists those groups and the contact persons, and we'll also put that information in a variety of places on our website. People that have participated in the 2-day summit that we had with Facing History have continued to meet. So Mary Susan has been contacting folks who were a part of those, and there's still time. I suspect if you want to be a part of one of those community groups, I know that people are meeting and having some really good discussion about how to move forward in terms of reading groups and options there. There are resources for all of these groups. So if you want to do something that you feel would help those groups engage more, discuss more, learn better, we are available to just reach out to us. We're available. We're glad to work with folks to get resources that they need, from purchasing books or looking at webinars or doing trainings that they may have. Thanks to everyone that did the equity certificate program. We had over 200 faculty and staff in attendance at those, almost for each of the 4 sessions. We will be sending out this week the PowerPoint, so you'll have access to those, and we're working on getting the certificates together as well. You've heard in President Berger-Sweeney, if you had a chance to look at it, her most recent update from the board, the DEI Board of Trustees Committee is working. They've begun their work. They've already started to meet with student groups. They've met with the Emoji Coalition. They have an upcoming meeting with the Multicultural Affairs Council, so the MAC student orgs, in early March. And they're also talking about their own required education for the board and looking at dashboards for in terms of looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion metrics. Alumni relations, thank you to Steve Donovan and Michael Casey for their work with Multicultural Affairs within the broader DEI office. There has been a survey for all alumni of color that has gone out. We have those results back. We're learning a lot from those results about what we are doing well and how we can increase and strengthen our engagement with alums of color. We'll be sharing that with our alums and engaging with them about how to move forward with many of the just great recommendations that we received in that survey. So we're appreciative of the work that we're doing to strengthen our relationships with alumni of color. You can look at the DEI website. We have our action plan is there. We will be updating it probably this week in terms of what kinds of progress we've made. There are several action items on there. Please feel free to go there. We'll keep you updated there. You can also look at the Task Force on Campus Climate website. You'll see updates specifically related to the demands from Black and Trend, and also President Berger-Sweeney's letter on January 28th to the campus community entitled An Update on Our Work to End Sexual Misconduct at Trinity. So those are places where you can get some updates as well. Upcoming, so I'm almost done, Jason. Give me just a minute. Want to let you know that the Task Force on Campus Climate is reviewing action plans that have been submitted by all of our constituencies. We were requested for a little bit of an extension for some of those constituents and still waiting on one, but we have just about all of those. We expect to give feedback on those plans. Remember, those were racial justice action plans. We plan to give feedback in early March and begin meetings with our broader community. So everyone here, we will have opportunities for all of you to begin giving us feedback on an initial draft of looking at an institutional racial justice plan. Bantam to Bantam, so intergroup dialogue, we are going to launch that. For those of you that have been a part of the intergroup dialogue work, you know we've been busy with training and providing professional development. So now we have about 45 faculty and staff that have received intergroup dialogue training, and we expect that in mid to late March, we're going to launch some actual dialogue discussions. We're very excited about that, and so thankful that so many of you have chosen to be a part of that training and are going to be a part of providing intergroup dialogue conversations. For those of you who may not have gotten trained but still want to be a part of this, you can. We'll have a series, and if you have a group or a department that would like to reach out and ask about having facilitators to have an intergroup dialogue discussion with your group, this group will be able to do that as well. And oh, we're in the midst of Black History Month. I bet most of you knew that. And we have several programs coming up. Please look at the DEI website for that. I'm going to make a plug for that. I was told that I was supposed to always never waste a moment to plug an event. So tomorrow night at 6 p.m., Dr. Eddie Glaude will be having a virtual conversation with us. It is entitled Race and Democracy, America is always changing, but America never changes. We think it will be provocative and interesting, an interesting evening. I want to thank the Emoji Coalition, Multicultural Affairs, and the Multicultural Affairs Council for really taking the lead on that. And then our non-exempt staff council, thank you for being a co-sponsor on that, SAIL and Office of Religious Studies. So that 6 p.m. is on Trinity today. You can register there. Two things that are coming up, actually, Michelle already mentioned one. Don't forget the employee engagement survey. Please participate. And then we'll be repeating our campus climate survey probably in April. We had great results in terms of participation rates this past administration, which was 2 years ago. We want to know how we're doing. We want to know what progress we've made, and we've used that data to really create the action planning and the programs that we're developing and implementing now. So thank you. Be on the lookout for that, and we hope you'll take part in that.
Thank you. Thank you, Anita. To Dean Joe and the Student Life team, do you have a sense of how many students we have returning for the spring?
Well, in terms of residents, we know that there'll be over 1,600, probably 1,650 in college residents, and then off campus over 200 students. I'm sorry, Jason, I don't have the answer about class enrollment. Maybe one of the academic deans knows that question in terms of class enrollment.
That question was addressed in the chat. So Sonia did, yeah, Dean Cardenas did address that question. Thank you.
Actually, can I jump in? Because I answered another question, but I don't have that exact number as Joe said. But what we do know is that in the student survey, 95% of students, overwhelming numbers said that they were coming back to campus. And so while we don't have the exact number, and I don't know if anybody else on the call does, we know that it's a substantial majority.
Thank you, Dean Cardenas. Michael Casey wasn't able to join us today, but President Berger-Sweeney, I'm hoping you can answer it as our chief fundraiser in office. There was a comment, a recent article noted that 65% of colleges and universities raised less money in 2020 than they did in 19, and was Trinity part of that 65%?
No, Trinity was not part of the 65%. Last year was our highest fundraising year since 2015. I know we raised over $24 million. What I will tell you is that a good deal of our fundraising effort has been toward current use. Because we were in a pandemic, because our families and students needed it, we did a lot of fundraising related to current use, and the Trinity community was incredibly generous, making it one of our better fundraising years since I've been here. We also saw a significant increase in volunteers, generally alumni who are also doing our fundraising. So we are hoping this year to continue on our trend, but we will tell you that the focus has been on current use. And we hope as the pandemic moves on that we will be able to go back to some of our larger and endowment related fundraising efforts. But so far so good.
Thank you. Somehow I knew you would have that information in your head. So thank you for providing that response. There was one more question about the number of faculty and staff who are still impacted by some of the personnel decisions that we had to make. So there was a question about how many are furloughed. I don't have that number, and I know they were scattered, they were spread out over the year. So I don't know if anybody else on the panel has an idea of how many of our colleagues might be furloughed at this time. It might not be possible to answer that question unless somebody wants to raise their hand and attempt to. I'm looking.
I would say, there are a few planned for after spring semester concludes. But I think at this time they are relatively low in number, given that the students are returning. I don't know if anyone can add to that. That's off the top of my head.
No, thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that. We're about 1 minute shy of the scheduled end of our webinar, and those are all the questions that we received. So at this time, I will turn it over to President Berger-Sweeney for some closing remarks.
Okay, so primarily 3 things are coming to mind, 3 words, as we end our time together. I think that, or I hope that we have demonstrated to you that we are prepared for the start of the spring semester. We've learned lessons from the fall. We've worked hard over the breaks, and we feel prepared for the spring semester face-to-face. And we have our best wishes that things will go well. I want to say thank you to all of the people on this call for your incredible flexibility. From changes in the academic calendar to going online to all the support that was necessary while our students were here and keeping them engaged as we were learning remotely. So thank you, and incredible flexibility. And the last thing that comes to mind is our resilience as a community. I shared with you that we have done well on fundraising. It has been very much focused on current use, but our alumni have come together with all of the people on campus to support our efforts. We have been resilient. Every time our numbers peaked, through careful testing, contact tracing, all of the efforts that you heard about, we were resilient, brought those numbers back to close to 0 so that we were able to complete an in-person semester in the fall. I am nothing but optimistic for the spring semester. I know that we have a lot to do. I know it's still hard, but I know based on what I've seen that we can do this as a community. Thank you for your efforts. We are all in this together, and we are doing the best that we possibly can. Thank you.